Hello, I'm Idaho State Representative Heather Scott from District 1, and today is February 2nd, Groundhog's Day, and I wanted to give you a brief update on what's happening at the Boise Capitol and kind of let you know where things are. So we've been down here now for 4 weeks, and we have been trying to come up with legislation to address the governor's emergency powers and address what's going on with the pandemic emergency. And the first thing I want to talk about is the pandemic. So, turn off your TVs and let's look at the facts. And if you look at our emergency plan, it actually gives numbers for what a pandemic looks like. And a pandemic has a 1.5% fatality rate. And what we have in Idaho, and this was last week, it's probably less now, is a 0.39 fatality rate. It's not even close to pandemic numbers. Not only that, but there is a 99.6% recovery rate if you get COVID. So fear not, and fear not because I heard flu deaths are down now 95%. So anyone that had the flu last year, there's no flu this year, or there's no flu on this last season. It's all COVID. And so a 99.6% recovery rate, there's still reason to be concerned and nobody likes to get sick, but I just want to encourage you, turn off the TV. They're fear mongering and they're doing it so they can control citizens and implement agendas. So that's the first thing. Now, what we are doing to address the governor's overreach. The governor has violated the Constitution. He's outside of his boundaries, that if his authority that's given to him in the Constitution, he's not allowed to appropriate money and he's not allowed to write law. And that's exactly what he's done over the last 9 months. And that's our job as a legislature. And we did not sue him. And I think we had legal grounds to probably sue him for doing our job. But what we've chose to do is come back into session and fix the code and fix the laws so he can never do this again. And so we have 5 bills. There are 3 in the Senate and 2 in the House, and these bills are addressing his emergency powers. And they don't strip him of everything. We want, during disasters and times of emergency, we want someone to be able to be at the helm that's trustworthy, that's not going to violate people's rights, that can actually address the emergency. But over the years, a lot of liberty's been given in the law to allow certain things. So that is what we've been working on. And why it's taking so long, 4 weeks, is that you have to have a veto-proof bill because likely nobody wants to be reined in or reprimanded or a check and balance on them. That's just, people don't like that. And so when the governor gets that bill and says, I'm not allowed to do what? I can't do what? It's going to get vetoed likely. So we are trying to make sure we have the language, that we have enough people in the House and enough people in the Senate, and we're all on board with this and say, you know what, we believe so strongly in this that we will override the veto. So that's what's taking so long, and it's really unfortunate that it's taking that long. So, but those will rein in the emergency powers. Now, there's also the deal of ending the emergency, and that's been a contentious issue. The House issued a bill to end the emergency, and then the Senate said, well, we want to end the emergency too, but we want to make sure you get federal money. So there's 2 different views of ending the emergency. One really wants to end everything, not only the emergency, but that federal connection, that federal spigot, and the other is fine with that federal money coming in. So let's talk money for a minute. We have received last year, because of the pandemic, $8 billion, and that's over 100% of our entire state budget. So we're flush with cash. Not only that, but our state is sitting on $1 billion of your taxpayer dollars. It's just excess, surplus money. And so there's a lot of money. And so if we end the emergency and stop that federal dollars, and it doesn't stop any of the money we've got, it just stops new money from coming in that they will not be able to tap into. And my argument is if there's no emergency, what do we need emergency money for? What do we need FEMA money for? To come in and force people to take actions they don't want to do, force vaccinations or force isolation or what have you. So I think people need to really think through this, and I'm hoping we have the conversation down here that federal dollars come with strings attached, and this new administration is way different than the old administration, and there's just different visions, and we as Idahoans really need to look at that and say, is this really what we want to do to our Idahoan citizens? And so that's one part of ending the emergency. It would stop the federal money. Now, even if we end the emergency, what you're going to hear is, well, that doesn't stop the mask mandates. And you're right. Our health districts are out of control. And they're basically putting these blanket mandates on communities that aren't within a pandemic level. And so they're also trying to isolate people that aren't sick, healthy people, which they can't do. The code says they can isolate sick people, and they're calling quarantine, and our code says they can quarantine buildings. It doesn't say they can quarantine people or groups of people. So we really need to address that part of code in the health districts. And if you've listened to my other videos, health districts are regional governments. So it's a really tricky thing, because a regional government sits over, it's not one political boundary, it's many political boundaries. So the people making decisions for you have no way to get them out of office if they're making poor decisions. You can't shut down your health districts. You can get your county commissioners to not fund them, but ultimately there's 5 counties involved, and so it's really a complicated regional government. I need to do a whole video on that so you understand what problems that brings to your representation. So that's a whole nother issue, and what we're running into with that. So the 5 bills we are working on back and forth trying to get veto proof. With the health districts, there are several bills out there to say we can't do forced vaccinations. We can't let the health districts do this. People shouldn't be forced to do stuff. And there's a lot of bills out there. And the problem is neither chairman on the House or the Senate side will allow any of those bills to be heard. The chairman has taken the power of almost a veto power, that if he doesn't like your idea, you will not be able to hear that bill. So what we're trying to do is, they need to go into the part of code that is addressed in health and welfare, but people are trying to be real creative and reroute them through other committees, because 2 people are holding up the health and welfare bills. And so that's really unfortunate, and that probably, if those 2 people are in your district, you may want to reach out to them. And you can find that on idaholegislature.gov, look under committees, and you'll see who the health and welfare chairmen are. Those are people you might want to say, why are you not allowing these ideas to be shared or discussed? I don't know if they just don't understand what's going on across the state. They're oblivious to it. They like the health districts' control over people. I don't know what it is, but only you, because all power is in the people, only you can pursue that and see. I'm ready to get back to normal. I don't know if you are, but I'm guessing you are. Our suicide rates are up, drug rates are up, our domestic violence stuff is up. Society is crazy. Our businesses are closing. It's like a ghost town down here in Boise, which is really sad, because it was a happening little town. And so everybody wears masks. It's crazy. So anyway, call your legislators and tell them you support them and you really want them to rein in the emergency powers and end the emergency if that's what you want to do. I want to touch on one more thing, the vaccines. So we've had a lot of concerns that people are like, well, if you end the emergency, I won't be able to get my vaccine. That is not true. There's been a rollout of the vaccines, and they've been hitting healthcare workers first, and people in the prisons and schools and healthcare workers. And so I think this week they're starting to hit citizens 65 and older. The problem is there's a supply and demand issue. There's not enough supply for the demand. And so right now it's opened up to 65 and older, and how you can get your vaccine if you're interested in that is call your health district or go on their site, and they'll show you all the people distributing the vaccine. And so I would encourage you to read the side effects and read all the information on that, so you know it's a different kind of vaccine. It's an RNA vaccine. And so make sure you educate yourself on that so you know what that means, because we've never had vaccines like this before. But the problem is supply and demand, not the emergency. It's not money. We have $51 million to distribute vaccines in our state. And like I said, we're sitting on $1 billion of taxpayer dollars. We've collected $8 billion, double our budget for a year in COVID money. So we are flush with cash in our state. Hopefully, you'll get to see a tax relief out of all this, and that's my hope. I will end this now, and I will update you a little later. I have some other concerns and some other issues I want to address. One of which is the language changes that I am seeing in our legislation, and the word shall is being changed to must, all throughout our code, all throughout our administrative rule, and it's kind of interesting, and I'll get into this later when I get the rest of the details. But they are literally, if it's the citizen, you must. But if it's the government, they change the shalls to the government will. So you read it, the government will, the citizen must. And there's more legal issues, with must than there is with will. And so it's concerning to me. We're still trying to figure out where the source of this is, and we think we've tracked it down. And so hopefully I will update you on that. I remind you again, go to repheatherscott.com and go read my last two newsletters. One is 110 things you can start doing to make a difference now, and one is the Great Reset and how Idaho's participating. And this is literally a global plan, and big corporations are trying to put the little guys out of business, and it is going on. You can see it through this COVID situation, how they've manipulated that to shut down the little guys, the bars, the mom and pop restaurants. And Idaho is participating. And so I encourage you to read those. I encourage you to get involved locally. If you have a good sheriff and you have a good prosecuting attorney, they will not enforce unconstitutional edicts. And so I encourage you to get to know your elected officials. I encourage you to maybe step up and run for office if you don't like what you're seeing. And I just thank you for watching, and I'll keep you updated. Thank you.